and let's get started today. So today, guys, we are going to be covering the advanced resistance approaches, and this revolves around your level 3 learner record and also your practical assessment. So these resistance approaches are within the course manual. There are actually more than 9 in your course manual, but the ones that you need to choose from are the chosen 9 that we are going to go through in today's lesson. So I am going to be covering 9 advanced resistance approaches that you can see here on this first PowerPoint slide. So the main bullet points, I'm going to be covering supersets, trisets, giant sets, forced reps, drop sets, negatives. Going to cover pre-exhaust and post-exhaust, but can you see this comes under one bullet point? This is one type of training method that you can choose for your assessment. Then I will be covering matrix, also known as matrix 21s, and covering pyramids. Now, pyramids, you have 3 different types of pyramids: ascending pyramid, descending pyramid, and a full pyramid, complete pyramid. But again, this will come under one chosen resistance method of pyramid training. So if I just count the bullet points on the main bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the 9 resistance approaches, the 9 resistance methods that you will be learning, understanding about, I'll be explaining today. And the takeaway is, from these 9 methods, which 4 do I want to choose to give to my client in my learner record? So hopefully by the time you start to fill in the 8-week overview, which is next Monday's webinar, you would have already found your client. There's a collecting client information bit starting around page 10. You would have worked out exercise goals with them as well as nutritional goals. So this chosen client, you've already started in the beginning, the first half of your learner record. Now we are going to start programming exercises for them across an 8-week period or a 2-month period. But before we plan that in on next Monday's webinar, it is good to have an idea of which resistance methods we want to give to the client. So if they're a beginner, to be absolutely fair, these are advanced resistance methods. They're not necessarily for beginners. So I like to throw that out there. However, if you do have a beginner client for your assessment, we do still need to see these methods. You are on a level 3 PT course, and we need to see that you are able to understand, explain, and instruct advanced resistance approaches as well as advanced cardio approaches, rather than just straight sets. So this is why, if you do have a beginner client, or maybe it's a family member or a friend who hasn't really used the gym before, maybe we need to cleverly choose some methods here which might be easier for them to A, understand, B, perform, as well as doesn't break down their muscles as much. So let's cover these approaches now. I think what I will do is, after each advanced resistance approach, I would just ask questions after each one. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Supersets. Okay, supersets is to perform 2 exercises back to back with little or no rest in between. So 2 exercises put together with no rest in between. Once you finish the 2 exercises, then you get a rest break. So this can be the same muscle superset. So this would be called a agonistic superset. So an example of a same muscle superset could be chest press into chest fly. It could be on machines, chest press machine, chest fly machine. It could be on free weights, dumbbell chest press into dumbbell chest fly. Is going to be working the exact same muscles. Therefore, we're going to be overloading those target muscles. So agonistic supersets can be good to use to overload your target muscle. It can also be for opposing muscle groups. So these two exercises we choose can be for opposite muscle groups. This will be called an antagonistic superset. So an example could be chest press machine followed by lat pull down machine. So what you need to do is once you finish one resistance machine, you need to get up and run as fast as you can to the next machine, because it should be done with little or no rest in between. So ideally, you choose machines that are close to each other, not on the complete other side of the gym. Or to mitigate someone else being on the machine that you've chosen, you might just do dumbbells or body weight. That way, you're not going to get anyone getting in the way. You can do press-ups on the floor, and as long as you had some dumbbells already prepared on the floor near you, you can pick them up and do a bent over row exercise. So the examples I've given you, the first exercise works the chest area, and the second exercise works the back area. They are literally opposing on the human body. They are antagonistic. The reason or why antagonistic supersets are good is you can do double the work in the same amount of time. So you can do double the volume. Some bodybuilders would do a chest and shoulders day, and then completely on the next day they do a back day, working all their back muscles. But if you did a chest and back superset workout, choosing pairs, like 5 different pairs of machines, you've done your chest and back day in one day. You don't have to do that across 2 days. Now, it is a bit harder. It will, tire your body out quicker. You're using up your glycogen quicker. Your nervous system will get more tired. Your heart rate will go higher. So it is advanced in that sense, but you get a lot more done. So when you are explaining all of these resistance approaches to your client, also this, if we want to simplify it back down to level 2, practical assessment, when you come to each machine or exercise you're about to instruct, you can probably, or I would highly recommend actually, that you go with a what, how, and why way of instructing. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And why am I going to do it? By doing this, you would get a lot of ticks in your assessment criteria. So example, what we're about to do is supersets using the chest press machine and the lat pull down machine. How we're going to do it is perform 10 reps on the chest press machine, and with no rest, we're going to go straight onto the lat pull down machine and perform another 10 reps. Why we're going to do this is we can work twice the amount of volume. We can work your chest and the back in the same amount of time that we would normally just work your chest muscles. So overall, it's a great time saver. This way, the client clearly knows what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and the reasonings why. So guys, before I move on, is that clear about supersets for one? And secondly, the best practice way of instructing? Great to see everyone's happy. There's one more thing I need to add actually about supersets. Now, a true superset is a isolation exercise into an isolation exercise, or a compound exercise into a compound exercise. So just a quick reminder, isolation exercises are single joint, single muscle. So bicep curl is the elbow joint that moves only, and the bicep muscle that is worked only. Or let's say tricep extension, again, elbow is the only joint moving, tricep is the only muscle working. Compound exercises are multi-joint, multi-muscle. So if we think of press-ups, you got your shoulder joint moving and you've got your elbow joint moving. You work 3 muscle groups: pectorals, deltoids, and triceps. If you think about a squat, what joints move? Your hip flexes, your knees flex, your ankle dorsiflexes as you go down. So that's 3 joints there. What muscles do squat works? Gosh, name all your leg muscles, it's going to work, all of them. You know, keep it simple right now. Hamstrings, quads, glutes, adductors, calves. There's a lot going on. When you do a superset, a true superset is going to be isolation exercise and isolation exercise. So bicep curl into tricep extension, or a compound exercise into compound exercise, such as shoulder press into chest press. You'll see why later today when we go into pre-exhaust and post-exhaust. Let's move on now to trisets. Very similar to supersets. Now you perform 3 exercises back to back with little or no rest in between. I mean, ideally, you better be getting that next exercise, you know, the client moving and working in the next exercise in well under 5 seconds. Ideally, you got 2 seconds, get going with that next exercise. Once you finish the second exercise, you got 2 seconds, you're getting going with your third exercise. That's ideally. Obviously, with some other clients, it might take longer to kind of set up with the next exercise. Now, with trisets, it has to target all the same or similar muscle groups. So that's a big one, big point that you need to take away with trisets. I am choosing 3 exercises that target the same area. Now, if you do that, even with a lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight, if you're working to the right repetitions, so the rate of perceived exertion, the how it feels scale, your muscles are burning, whatever weight you choose, it's going to be tough. First exercise, my muscles are burning. Second exercise, my muscles are burning. Third exercise, my muscles are burning. 3 exercises all together. So when you finally get to that rest point, you more than likely will need a 2 to 3 minute rest in between. Once you take your 2-minute rest or your 3-minute rest, then you do all those 3 exercises again. If you need a shorter rest break, maybe you're not choosing a high enough weight. Remember, this is advanced resistance methods. This is tough stuff. Yeah? So if you're doing the what, how, and why, we're about to do the trisets. We're going to work our legs out. So the first exercise is a deadlift. The second exercise is a squat. And the third exercise is dumbbell lunge. So by having all 3 weights, I would need bars ready for the deadlifts and the squats, let's say, and I would need my dumbbells ready for my lunges. You need to get everything ready to begin with. Why? Because you need to go from one exercise to the next exercise to the next exercise as quickly as possible. Once you perform all 3 of those exercises to your set rep ranges, then you'll take a break. Why we do trisets is going to really overload those muscles. And depending on your rep range, it could be for endurance hypertrophy. It's usually endurance and hypertrophy it's going to be for. So let's say you do 10 reps of each exercise on your legs. That's going to be overall 30 reps performed on your legs. So then I would argue that is going to be good for your endurance, muscular endurance in your legs. Now, if you ended up going very heavy and you did, 4 reps on your deadlift, 4 reps on your squat, and 4 reps on your lunges on each leg, then that'll be 12 reps performed. Then you can argue that is going to be good for your muscular hypertrophy, and you might also argue for your strength. So, if you want to keep things simple, trisets are great for overloading your chosen muscle group. If you want to get technical, start thinking about how many reps all those 3 exercises add up to. Right, guys, any questions on trisets? I'm about to move on to the next resistance method. Right, let's move on, guys. We are now moving on to giant sets. So in one sentence, giant sets are just like trisets, but instead of 3 exercises, you have 4 or more exercises. Okay, so giant sets, I would highly recommend just to do 4 exercises for your practical assessment. In reality, if you do 5 or 6 exercises, that's still a giant set. There's just more that can go wrong during your practical assessment, especially if you are using a combination of free weights and resistance machines. Because what if someone starts using that resistance machine halfway through your giant set? Now you have to think on the feet and come up with an alternative. This is why when you're doing your trisets and giant sets, if you are using resistance machines, you do need to have an alternative ready just in case another member of the gym jumps on it. Right, so giant sets, what it is to do 4 exercises back to back with little or no rest in between. It has to be the same or similar muscles worked, and it's going to be tough. So at the end of it, you get a 2 or maybe a 3-minute break before you repeat all those 4 exercises again. So an example of a giant set on your back muscles, so choosing 4 exercises, I might do a mixture of dumbbells and cables. If you find a dual adjustable pulley machine, they normally have a chin-up bar in the middle and then 2 pulley cables on the side. So I would do the harder exercise first. So I would start off with pull-ups or chin-ups, whatever grip the client is able to do. That will be the first exercise. And then from there, I might use the pulley cable, which I've already set up beforehand with a D handle and a little step thing to put the feet against, and do a seated row on the dual adjustable pulley cable. From there, I might get some dumbbells I prepared earlier and do bent over row. So I've done a vertical pull with the pull-ups. I've done a seated row horizontal pull. I've done a bent over row horizontal pull. 3 tough exercises. And just to make sure I get the whole area of the back, I might set up a rope on the cable pulley and then do cable face pulls to work the upper back. So that last exercise is not necessarily the exact same muscles worked, but that last exercise with a cable face pull is similar muscles worked. And the client would probably thank me for having a slightly different muscle groups work, but it's still a pulling motion and it's still working the back. That is an effective giant set working all of my muscle groups. Probably after a 2-minute break, I would repeat it 1 more time, and that's it. That's it. At the absolute most, maybe I'll do 3 of these giant sets, but 2 should probably be enough. Any questions on giant sets, guys? So yeah, I'll be asking questions at the end of each one. So do get your questions in straight away, or if you need more time, just type in "wait, I have a question," and then get your question across. All right. So basically, guys, I think it's fair to say those 3 are your more simple options. Supersets, 2 exercises back to back, but they can be same muscle or opposite. Trisets, 3 exercises back to back, same muscle. Giant sets, 4 exercises back to back, same muscle. They're probably your more simple options for your beginner clients and also for remembering and explaining. So let's just bring it up a notch. Forced reps. Forced reps is what you might have witnessed personal trainers do with their clients when they're working very hard on something like a shoulder press or a bench press. They're there for them. They're spotting their client. They're really giving motivation. Come on, you can push. Come on, you can push. And at the very end, they're helping with a couple of reps, or they're forcing out a couple of reps. So, forced reps, a client will perform a set on their own. The client themselves will keep going until their point of failure. So when they hit the RPE 8, you're telling them, come on, you can do it. You can do another couple of reps yourself. Then they bang out another rep. They're at RPE 9. They want to give up. You as a trainer are still motivating them, whether it's in a loud kind of, come on, you can do it way, or however you're doing it. They're at RPE 9, but you're telling them to carry on. So the next rep, when they try and do one more rep, even though they're already at RP 9, they probably are going to fail and get half a rep out. So at that particular point of failure, you as the personal trainer, already standing in the good spotting position, will come in and provide assistance and help the client push and get this extra rep out. You would help the client get about 2 extra reps out. So here it says for 2 to 4 more reps. This is my opinion. If you are making the client work at RPE 9 already, what we're trying to get them to is RPE 10, or if it's, I know it's not accurate, but RPE 11 if possible. Yeah. So you only need to do 2 more reps, as long as the client themselves are not lying to you and they actually are failing themselves. You start doing your 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you might injure your client by pushing them over the edge a bit too much. So in my opinion, this is just my humble opinion, as long as they're working hard, 2 forced reps is fine. Matt, let's say we had a client that, didn't lied about their RPE, or that they had a bit extra in their tank. That's when you might do your four extra reps. Why is this good? So let me do the what, how, and why. So what we're about to do is forced reps. These work better on some exercises than others. So shoulder press, you get behind the client. You grab them, ideally, so you hold the wrists on a shoulder press. But I know a lot of you guys would see a lot of PTs and gym buddies hold the elbows and push up. So if you hold the wrist, it's supposed to, just below the wrist on the forearm, it's supposed to keep the wrist more stable. So that is the preferred textbook way of spotting. But elbows, I understand, you might find it more comfortable to do that. So there's 2 options for you. Bench press, obviously you're standing right by the person's head on a bench machine. You're ready to grab the barbell at all times. The other type of exercises you might be able to do forced reps on is when someone struggles with a pull-up, and then you grab them kind of by just above the waist, and then pushing them up, kind of holding their lat area, just giving them a little boost. Bicep curl on a barbell. You could stand in front of them, and when they get to that sticking point where the lever's the longest, you could then force it up and help them out. So let me go through the what, how, why. So what we're about to do is forced reps on the bench press machine. How are we going to do it? Using this 50 kilo weight, you yourself, the client, will perform as many reps as you can. So I think you'll be able to do 10 or 11 or 12 on your own, and that's all you. Once you get to that point of failure, within 10, 11 or 12, I'll be checking. Then I will jump in, and what I'm going to do is help you get 2 or 3 extra reps out. Don't worry, I will be there to support you at all times. I want you to go to your maximal effort and to your point of failure. Why this is good is we're going to be able to work at higher intensities and overload those muscles a lot more, which will then induce hypertrophy or strength, depending on your rep range. Okay, guys, so hope those examples helped. Some exercises are easier to force out than others. such as to add lateral raise can help, possible squat. You can, again, like the chin up, kind of grab the lats and push upwards. When you have a mismatch in your own strength and your client is stronger than you, then these kind of advanced resistance methods become, it depends on how you look at it. Now, if the client only needs that little extra boost, and you yourself as a trainer might have a lower strength than your client, your little boost is enough to force those reps out. But for some high risk exercises, it might be worth trying another method. So just want to throw that out there. Even though the theory of it, they only need a little boost. You don't, the trainer giving the boost doesn't need much strength themselves. They only need that little bit of strength. Do keep in mind about trainer to client mismatch in strength when choosing these types of methods. Any questions on forced reps before I move on? Right, thank you to you happy guys there. So, drop sets, also known as strip sets. So, what are drop sets? You start from a heavy weight and you gradually move down to lighter weights. So, an example would be, well, let's cover this first. So, you will use a heavy weight that you can only perform 6 to 8 reps out of. When you do drop sets, I would recommend doing it on resistance machines, or a pulley machine is still a resistance machine in the sense you've got weights and you've got pins and you choose the weight plate just by sticking the pin in. So make sure you start with a heavy weight, so you're going to fail within about 6, 8, 10 reps. Okay, let's use bicep curls on the pulley machine for an example. So I've chosen a heavy weight, something like 30 kilos, and I'm doing 10 reps. When I get to my 10th rep, I cannot do any more. My biceps are burning. That's when I'm going to lower the weight, take the pin out, remove a small percentage of the load. So I'm just going to go from 30 to 25. I'm just going to drop the weight 1. And then I'm going to continue. Straight away, I pick up the bar. Straight away, I start to perform bicep curls again. Then you just go to failure. So initially, you might choose a heavy weight, you can do 10. Then after that, you just work to failure. So now I'm on 25 kilos. Don't even need to count the reps. I'm just going till I feel the burn in my arms. And then finally, I've got there. My arms are burning. They feel like they're going to pop out. Then lower the weight. Take the pin out from 25, quickly as possible, put it 1 lighter, drop the weight 1 lighter to 20, pick up the bar, carry on again. So this would be my 3rd time. Well, this would be my 2nd time I've dropped the weight, isn't it? So you keep going, don't bother counting the reps, just work to failure. As a PT, you're just motivating here because it's burning in the arms. You're really giving lots of motivation. Good work. Keep pushing. Breathe out. Keep your back straight, elbows tucked in. All of those teaching points. And then when they fail again, you will drop the weight from 20 and put it into 15. So now it might look like a light load, but this client is screaming in agony because of the overloaded bicep muscles. So we've dropped that weight 3 times. So usually you will drop it 3 times and call it an end, but you can keep dropping the weight further. So we were on 15 kilos, weren't we? And in my example here, go to failure, arms are bulging now, all the blood's flowing to the biceps, drop the weight, put it into 10 kilos. And then that's probably your last one you'd finish. But you could even drop it down to 5 kilos, which would be the very last weight. So, takeaway points, drop sets. You start heavy and you end up going lighter. Make sure you do start heavy so you fail quickly. Once you fail, drop the weight lighter, work to your new failure. When you reach your 2nd new failure, drop the weight, make it lighter, work to your 3rd point of failure. Drop the weight, make it lighter, work to your 4th point of failure. So that is drop sets. I recommend using resistance machines because as the personal trainer, all you need to do is take the pin out and stick it into one lighter. And if you're really good at doing this, you could do that in under 2 seconds. In 1 second, you're sticking the pin out, sticking it back in, and the client carries on. Literally, basically trying to keep time under tension on those muscles as much as possible. Now, it's called strip sets if you do something like this on a deadlift or a bench press using a barbell. So what you want to do if you do strip sets is instead of using those big 20 kilo discs, the weight plates, you probably want to whack on smaller ones like 10 and 10 instead of having the 20. And then 5 and 5, and then 2.5 and 2.5 weight plates. So after your first initial set, you can strip off the 2.5s on each side. Then on the next set, you take off the 2.5s again. Then on the next set, you take off the 5s on the end. Then the next set, you take off the 5s on the end. Then the next set, you take off the 10s on the end. That's just a random quick example that I've just come up with, but I just wanted to get the point across that you want to have a small segment, small increments of weights loaded on the bar already. So when you start stripping off the small increments of weights, it's so much easier. You might even get your client to help you to make it go faster. So you take off one side and your client takes off the other side. Actually, I would highly recommend you get your client to help you take it off, because otherwise it's going to take way too long dropping the weight. And I'm a very fond fan of quick as possible when it comes to drop sets. Okay, so what we're doing is drop sets. How we're doing it is choosing a set weight, working to failure. Once you reach failure, making the weight lighter, working to a second point of failure. Once you get there, we're going to drop the weight lighter and work to a third point of failure. We would drop the weight at least 3 times, but we might go even more. Why we do this is going to really overload the target muscles, and it's also very good for muscular endurance. Why I say muscular endurance is more than likely you're going to get a lot of reps out. Okay, that was drop sets. Any questions, guys? Right, guys, let's move on. Negative training, also known as eccentric training. This is similar to forced reps in the sense that the trainer will be helping out. However, it's generally performed with the weight above 1 rep max. So you need assistance from the trainer to help on the concentric part of the exercise or the hardest part of the exercise. The client will take down the complete weight of exercise on their own on the eccentric phase. So this is why it's also called eccentric training. So let's say the example here is bench press. Okay. And let's use a guy as an example that can do 1 rep at 100 kilos. Okay. He can do 100 kilos for 1 rep. He's managed to get to this level. If you're going to do eccentric training with him, it's generally performed with a weight above 1 rep max. So he can push 100 kilos, but he cannot push 105 or 110. So what we're going to do with him, we're going to get 105 or 110 kilos, okay? Because a true negative, you go above your 1 rep max. Why? Because true negatives, true eccentric training is solely for one purpose, is to build strength. To build strength, you need to be 90%, 95%, 100% of your 1 rep max. Here, we're going to go 105, 110% of your 1 rep max. How is that possible when he can't even push it? Because you as the trainer are going to lift it. So on a bench press, as a personal trainer, you have to pull up this 100 and Let's go with 110 kilos for this example. You as a trainer in that spotting position, you have to pull up 110 kilos upwards, kind of in an upright row fashion. Then the client will take down the complete weight, the 110 kilos, slowly and controlled on the eccentric phase down to the chest. When they get to this level, they're not going to push it up because A, they can't, they don't have the strength, but B, the trainer is always going to do all of the concentric part. So the trainer again, upright rows this 110 kilos, and then the client again slowly lowers it down. 110 kilos for this particular client that can only push 100 is a lot. So you will only do about 1 to 5 reps with this client. You probably will go for 3, 4, or 5 reps. Why is it possible for the client to lower down 110 kilos when he can't push up more than 100? You would have learned this in your level 2 principles of exercise workbook, but you are 30% stronger in your eccentric phase. I believe that's the correct fact. You are definitely stronger on the eccentric phase. Okay. Now, this is the whole mismatch thing I mentioned earlier in forced reps. If you cannot pull up 110 kilos for this example client, then you cannot do this negative resistance approach with your client. What you might see in powerlifting videos or people in the gym, they work in groups of 3 or 4 just to do this one method. You'll get 2 spotters on each side of the bench press. So you really need experienced gym goers or weight trainers, so they know how to spot at the same time. They need to communicate well. That way they're taking 55 kilos each on either side. They would hoist it up, the client lowers it down. So again, you really need to consider who your client is, what their strength level is, and what your strength level is. Because on your assessment, on your average day-to-day, you're not going to have another person or 2 other people helping you lift up heavy weights for your client's sessions. So you do need to consider the particular exercise also. Now, if it was the exact same example, bench press, but now let's use a female example, maybe 20 kilos is their 1 rep max. They can push 20 upwards, but they cannot push 25 kilos upwards. Okay, we'll probably use the 25 in this example then, because that's a weight above their 1 rep max. But you, as the personal trainer, still need to be able to get in the bench press spotting position and basically do that upright row motion, kind of like a deadlift, kind of like an upright row, keep your back safe, with 25 kilos. If you can't upright 25 kilos for your female client, then you would not choose this method. Weights aside, you can do negative training and what can't speak today. Okay, so let me start again. Negatives you might also see done with pull-ups, body weight. Pull-ups are a goal for a lot of people, whether it's male or female. I can't perform a pull-up. I would really like to do a pull-up. They can't perform 1 pull-up. So a pull-up is the equivalent of an exercise above their 1 rep max. They can't do 1, so doing 1 is more than their maximal effort. So what you will do here is, instead of the trainer helping on the concentric part, you get them to jump. You get them to cheat on the concentric part of the exercise. So you would have to explain, we're about to do negative training, which is also known as eccentric training, on the pull-ups. How we do a negative training is, instead of the pulling up phase and the lowering phase, I only want you to do the lowering phase of the exercise, the eccentric phase of the exercise. So what I would like you to do is jump up. So you're not going to pull yourself up. Use your leg muscles to jump up and get up there so your chin's on the same level as the bars. Once you are there, I want you to slowly control your body down for 3 seconds and then reset. When I say reset, you normally would have a step deck or a box underneath their feet ready to recompose, reset. Then they can easily grab the bar, and then when they're ready, you'll explain to go for a second jump for the second rep. Now do a big jump up, and then from here, slowly lower yourself. So that is another example of negative training or eccentric training. If you do have a mismatch in strength, something like the bicep curl can work well. You know, if 30 or 40 kilos on the bicep, it is a bit tough as the trainer, but that's kind of easier to lift up to the client's shoulders, and then the client will slowly lower down the bottom range, the eccentric part of the bicep curl. Then you yourself have to hoist it up to their shoulders. So the takeaway, guys, is the trainer does the concentric contraction, all of it. The client does the eccentric contraction, all of it. Any questions on negatives? Okay, thank you, guys. I think we got 2 more. Pre or post exhaust. If you are choosing this method for your learner record, for your client, for your assessment, you have to choose one of them. Pre-exhaust or post-exhaust. Whatever you do, you will perform an isolation exercise before or after a compound exercise on the same target muscle group. I should definitely add that. So in a pre-exhaust training, you would do an isolation exercise into a compound exercise. If you are doing post-exhaust training, you do the compound exercise followed by the isolation exercise. Okay, so an example of when and why. Bench press exercise, you generally, this is everyone generally tends to fail because their triceps fatigue first before their chest, their pectoral muscles fatigue. So because of the weaker triceps, the smaller size muscles, you have to give up on whatever rep you got to. So to give your pectorals a bigger workout, what you might do is pre-exhaust them doing chest flies. Now, chest flies will come down as an isolation exercise, if you guys were wondering that. So you would do chest flies with dumbbells, for example, on the particular bench press bench. And once you've fatigued and isolated those pectoral muscles, you put down those dumbbells nicely, and then you will grab the barbell from the bench press and then start working on the bench press machine, on the bench press bench. Therefore, your chest really is going to get the burning workout that it wants to, and then your triceps as well, everything will hopefully fatigue at the same time. So that's an example of why you would do pre-exhaust, because it's going to really overload those muscles on the target muscle group, and B, on an example like the bench press I gave you, your pectorals don't get as good as a workout as they can do because your triceps fatigue first. With another example for post-exhaust, or the opposite example for post-exhaust, if you really want to target a muscle group, such as your biceps, but you need to be able to perform the first exercise, that's when you might target it and isolate it afterwards. So pull-ups are a hard exercise, whether you use the assisted pull-up machine or you just go for straight body weight pull-ups. They are hard. They work your biceps really well, and they work your lats and other back muscles. So once you do your pull-ups, you can further continue to isolate your biceps by picking up some dumbbells and isolating them after the pull-ups. If you try to do that as a pre-exhaust, you might not be able to get any or many pull-ups out. So if you do your bicep curls first and then you try and go and do chin-ups, your biceps will be so fatigued already, you might find it hard to get any chin-ups or pull-ups out. Either way, the idea is to overload that target muscle group. So in the post-exhaust pull-ups into bicep curls, the point of doing that is to overload your biceps. So if someone wanted big guns, that could be a great thing to do. This takes me back to the superset. I mentioned a superset has to be an isolation exercise into an isolation exercise, so bicep curl into tricep extension, or it has to be a compound exercise into a compound exercise, such as shoulder press machine, chest press machine. If you start mixing them, so you do tricep extension and shoulder press machine, that's not a superset. That becomes a pre-exhaust training, as you've pre-exhausted your triceps, and then now you're on the shoulder press machine, isolation to compound. So I know what's in text, but that is why a superset has to be isolation into isolation or compound into compound, because if you start mixing them together, it's very likely it's going to become a pre-exhaust training or a post-exhaust type of training method. Any questions on that, guys? So I think we are on. Oh, we got two more. Let's talk about matrix 21s. Okay, 21 reps we're going to perform, breaking down the 21 reps into 3 phases. You will always start with the outer or the lower range. Then you go into your inner or your upper range. Then after that, you do full range of motion. Usually 7 reps per phase. So 7, 7, 7 equals 21 reps in total. And what I should have mentioned at the start was Matrix 21s was invented simply for bicep curls. So let me do the what, how, why. What we're about to do is Matrix 21s using the bicep curl. How we're going to do it is using this barbell. You're going to do 7 reps from the lower range first. So your hands are down straight below you and you're going to bring it halfway up. 7 reps from bottom to halfway. Once you hit your 7th rep, do not lower the weight down. Your hands are right in front of you, and then you're going to work 7 reps in your upper range, from halfway to the top to your shoulders. And once you finish those 7 reps, you're now going to go all the way down, all the way up, full range of motion for your final 7 reps. Once you do that, that will be 21 reps. The rest time is not put in here, but you probably will need 2 minutes. Because this is tough. This really fatigues out your matrix. The reason why we do matrix 21s on the biceps is to strengthen the sticking point. The sticking point is where your lever is the longest, or that halfway phase where your elbows are tucked in and your hands are the furthest away from the body. By doing 7 reps, working on that range, with another 7 reps, working on that range, you're getting really strong at that sticking point. And you're going to feel that when you do your last 7s. So, as a recommendation, the simplest recommendation, guys, is if you want to do matrix 21s in your assessment, I would stick with bicep curls. If you want to go outside of the box, anything to do with your arms is easier to break down the bottom half range, the top half range in full. So the lat pull down, for example, pull it all the way down, bring it halfway up, do 7 there. Halfway up to all the way up, 7 reps there, and then full range on the lat pull down. You can do this with chin-ups or pull-ups, but who can do 21 reps of pull-ups? 21 partial reps of pull-ups, or 14 partial reps and 7 full ones after that? Not many people. So my personal recommendation Stick with bicep curls. This is why bodybuilders invented it, was to get better at the bicep curls for the sticking point, or maybe the lat pull down. You start doing press ups and stuff, you start doing 2-inch mini press ups, and it's really hard to tell what the bottom range is and the top range is. You start doing this with squats and lunges, it just looks like 21 pulses. It's really hard to tell what the bottom range is and the top range is. It just looks like baby, again, 2-inch squats. So that's my recommendation anyway. Any questions on Matrix 21s? Then I believe we are going to go into the last resistance method, which is pyramids. Right, guys, I'm aware of the time, so let me get onto that. Okay, so yes, we are on the last resistance method. Okay, guys, ignore that text. I don't know why that text has come up here. That is still the same text from pre-exhaust training. So guys, do not look at that text on the top. Let's focus on this triangular pyramid picture. So apologies for that. Do not look at the text. What we are doing is, what I will be explaining now is the 3 different types of pyramid training. Let's start with the left-hand side. I hope you can see my cursor spinning around. We will talk about ascending pyramids. Why it's called ascending is we're going to go up the triangle or up the pyramid. We are going to go up in weight. So see, the bottom part here is light resistance and the top pyramid here is heavy resistance. What happens, guys, as you go heavier and heavier with weight? It's going to be harder and harder, and the amount of reps you can perform is going to be less and less. So ascending pyramid is when we're going to do multiple sets. So you have to do about 3 sets minimum. I would recommend 4 sets. So my what, how, and why. We are going to do ascending pyramids on doing free weight squats on the squat machine. How we're going to do it is perform 4 sets. Each set, we're going to make the weight heavier, but lower the reps. Make the weight heavier, but lower the reps. Make the weight heavier, but lower the reps. In between each set, you will get a rest break. As the weight keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier, you would probably get a little bit extra of a rest break. So ascending pyramids is for increasing weight as we lower the reps. Why we do this is it's safe. We're kind of warming into it. Your nervous system, we're firing up those motor units and those impulses. We're waking up the nervous system as we're doing it, and we're performing the exact same movement over and over. So again, the joints are getting looser and we're getting used to it. You see a lot of people, mainly guys, do this on the bench press machine. They might start with just the bar, then they add in 10 kilos on each side as a further warm up. Then when they're ready, they'll go 20 on each side as the first set. Then they add 5s on the next set. So let me give you an example, visual example here. So can we see here, we got 4 sets, 12 reps on the first one, 10 reps on the next one, 8 reps, and then finally we're going to finish with 6 reps. So the weight is light and it starts going heavier. We're still on the left-hand side ascending pyramids. If we use bench press, for example, with a guy, let's say the first set is 60 kilos, 12 reps. So we know 12 reps is good for hypertrophy, and we need 1 minute to 2 rest. So let's take a minute rest. 60 kilos times 12, and then we're going to have a break for 1 minute. Next set, 10 kilos. Let's go, 10 reps. We've just put little 2.5s on. 65 kilos for 10 reps. That's realistic. the extra 5 kilos means we get 2 less reps out. Okay, that was a bit harder, a bit heavier. So instead of 1 minute, let's take 1.5 minutes rest. Now we're going to increase the weight again by 5 kilos. So we got 70 kilos for 8 reps. Let's take a 2-minute break. And now we finish off with our last 75 kilos for 6 reps. As the weight got heavier from 60, 65, 70, and 75, the reps got lower. And did you see how I increased the rest time per set? And it goes with the exercise theory of the 1 to 2 minutes rest between 8 to 12 reps. So I gave the shorter amount, medium amount, and then the 2 minutes here. And if you were going to continue doing 4 reps or 2 reps, you would be resting for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe even 4 minutes before you get to your 1 rep max. So descending pyramids is the opposite. Your first set you start with starts at the heaviest weight you're going to use. So if that's a deadlift, you might be starting with 80 kilos for, again, 6 reps. 80 kilos for 6 reps. Then you have a break. Then you make it lighter, 70 kilos. But now you can do more reps. 60 kilos for more reps, 50 kilos for more reps. So descending pyramids is the weight descends, but the reps increase. Why we do this is because you're the freshest at the beginning, you got the most amount of energy at the beginning, and you can really start working on your strength at the beginning if you are going very heavy and you're in your strength reps. But considerations are you might not be warmed up and warmed into this, and there's higher chances of risk of injury. The complete pyramid is where you choose a certain exercise, like a squat, and you work your way all the way up, so the weight gets heavier, 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 and obviously the reps get less and less and less. As you get to the top, now the weight's the heaviest, you start to make the weights a bit lighter again each time, but the reps will increase. Make the weight lighter, reps increase. Make the weight lighter, reps increase. A complete pyramid is tough, and even if you were to do four sets up and 4 sets down, if you're using heavy weights, therefore requiring lots of rest break in between, like your 2 minutes and your 3 minutes, that will be your exercise session. If you do a complete pyramid on squats, you probably will end up hogging the squat rack for 35, 45 minutes. And once you warm in and warm down, warm up and cool down even, that's your hour session, basically. So remember, when you do choose a pyramid training method for your assessment, to just choose one. I will recommend ascending. It's just safer to perform as you warm into it. As your clients might not be fully warm during a practical assessment in that chosen exercise. But I would recommend ascending or descending just for time reasons. If you chose a complete pyramid, your assessment for your level 3 practical will be probably closer to 2 hours, I would have thought. So that's why just stick with ascending or descending. Minimum 3 sets, but I would go with 4. Make sure there is rest in between each set. Okay? If you did a descending pyramid, so the weight's heavier and it gets lighter, but you did not rest in between, that's a drop set. That's a strip set, isn't it? Start heavy, go lighter. But when you start adding your rest breaks in between, we're really, working those different rep ranges and therefore muscular strength and endurance continuum. That was today's lesson. Is there any questions on ascending pyramid, descending pyramid, complete pyramid, or anything we covered today? So guys, let me conclude. I went through 9 of them today. Try your best to think about which 4 I want to give to my client. Which 4 do I want to choose for my learner record coursework? Once you know which 4 you might choose, we need to stick them into the 8-week overview. I will be covering the 8-week overview about periodization on Monday. How can I do supersets and make them harder over 4 weeks, over 8 weeks, for example? So that's why it's good to kind of have a rough idea which 4 you might choose, as I'll be explaining how to progress each one over a set time frame on Monday. So guys, don't want to hold you any longer. Thank you very much for joining in. Monday, we've only got two more webinars to finish covering the course content. So please do join me again on Monday and Thursday, where we're going to cover the 8-week overview, program cards, and assessments. Okay, thank you very much and see you next week. Bye for now.